Before we get started, I want to mention that I get a lot of my video ideas from you, and I very much appreciate those ideas, but most of them are for videos that I've already done. I've got over 250 videos on YouTube, and a few of them are actually pretty good. So before you give me a new video idea, which I appreciate, maybe go back and look through the old videos. They're all organized into playlists, and it's pretty easy to find what you're looking for. All right, let's get started. Hey, I'm Ben. I'm a huge fly fisherman. Welcome back to another episode of Huge Fly Fisherman. In today's video, I'm going to talk about fly fishing slang and terminology. If you haven't watched episode 1 yet, maybe go check that out first. I'm going to go over some things you hear when we're talking about fly fishing, and if you don't know what they mean, then I'm going to explain it for you. Some of this is going to be educational, some is just for fun. I'll let you decide which is which. Okay, I'm going to kick it off by making a lot of you mad with this first one, and that's on the fly or on fly. I know a lot of you have this in your Instagram handle or your brand name, and I don't like it. On the fly? Which one? Is there only one? Aside from people who are using it as a bad pun, people who use on the fly or on fly need to make that distinction because they aren't real fly fishermen. But they dabble and they need to let you know when they caught something the cool way. You've never heard me say I caught a fish on fly. That's because I'm an actual fly fisherman, and it should just be assumed that whatever I catch is on a fly. I don't need to point it out because I'm a huge fly fisherman. But hey, if it makes you feel cool, go for it. All right, the next term is when people describe themselves as a multi-species angler. So you're just an angler then. Almost everyone is a multi-species angler. There are very few people who only catch one type of fish all the time. I'm gonna start calling myself a multi-road driver, or a multi-food eater, or a multi-foot walker because I use both feet. Multi-species angler is just a stupid term. All right, let's do a few definitions. Maybe you've heard LDR and you're not sure what that is. It stands for long distance release. Basically, it's when a fish gets off your line before you've brought him in. You LDR'd that fish because you suck at fly fishing. What about dead drift? Are you wondering what that means? It's kind of trout specific. You're trying to achieve a dead drift with your flies. You want your flies to be drifting in the current like they're not attached to your line and leader. Just drifting freely like a happy little turd floating in the water. A trout can tell when your fly is not getting a good dead drift, and it probably won't eat it. My favorite time to use the term dead drift is when I'm spanking trout around a bunch of other people who are not catching anything, and then a guy wanders over and asks me what fly I'm using. I tell him a dead drift. Okay, next definition, let's talk about laid up fish. That's usually thrown around when we're talking about tarpon or maybe redfish, but I've seen plenty of laid up carp and even trout. You say a fish is laid up when it's normally a type of fish that is gonna be moving around and looking for food, but when you find it, it's sitting still. Like you wouldn't say a bass or a muskie is laid up because they're ambush predators and they're sitting still most of the time. You can also use laid up if you're talking about my liver after a fishing trip. Speaking of, I'm thirsty. All right, next thing we'll talk about is high holing and low holing. And that's when you're cutting someone off. If I'm working a streamer and fishing my way downstream and you get in below me, you've just low holed me. Or if I'm fishing dry flies upstream and you jump in front of me, you're a high holer. High holing and low holing is dirty business, and it's something you should avoid. But it's super fun when you get to do it to your friends. All right, the next term that you might be wondering about is mending. Mending is when you are manipulating your fly line and leader on the water in order to get your fly to have a dead drift, which we talked about earlier. I've got a whole video about it, but one big takeaway is that you should mend before you need to mend. Is that meta or based? I don't know, there's some lingo that I can't keep up with. No cap. All right, the next one was sent in by a viewer, and it's loosely fly fishing related, but that's when people are calling their Tacoma pickup a taco. This is mostly dudes that would rather make love to their truck than a human. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If you have an Instagram account for your truck, just get out of here right now. All right, back to the fly fishing ones. The next one is hand-tied flies. Let me explain this. Every single fly in the world is a hand-tied fly. There are no machines that do it. Unless you are talking about a fly that's tied in hand, which is when you don't use a vise, there's no need to ever say hand-tied flies. It's like me saying I caught a fish on the fly. It's just implied. All flies are tied by hand. I'm still waiting to see a fly tied in foot. I think that'd be cool. All right, the next terms are buck and hen, which are used to refer to male and female fish, usually steelhead, which come from the ocean, by the way. Why are we using a mammal for buck and a bird for hen? Why isn't it cock and doe? And why was I not consulted when this terminology was established? I could have done a way better job. Moving on, calling trout streamers meat. I may have done this once or twice and I'm very embarrassed. I would never do it again. You know who calls streamers meat? Guys with tribal tattoos and truck nuts on their taco. All right, the next term is flossing. First, you should floss once a day, but flossing is also a very lame technique used to catch fish. I think the perfect example of flossing is when you have a pot of sockeye salmon that aren't really feeding, you just chuck your fly out there and swing it around. You're eventually gonna hook something. Their mouths are open, the leader's gonna go through their mouth, and they're gonna get hooked right here in the corner. Flossing is just snagging fish in the mouth. There's not even an argument against that. If your guide in Alaska sets you up to floss some fish, you should tell them that you don't want to do it. And if they protest in any way, you have a bad fishing guide and you should tell them that. All right, the next term is tactical. Hold on, let me see how hard I can roll my eyes. Oh, you're a tactical fisherman? What are you, launching a special forces raid on the trout? What kind of special tactics are you using? You know what mine are? To chill out and not care about catching more fish than everyone else. Hold on, I gotta go get another beer. All right, the next one is tight lines. I just can't. Please stop.
Tight lines! Tight lines! Tight lines! Tight lines! Tight lines! So tight.
Will someone tell that guy how annoying he is? All right, the next term that gets thrown around a lot that you might be wondering what it means, hook sets are free. That's what a guide says to you when you're not setting the hook enough and he wants you to set the hook more, because that's how you hook a fish. This was sent in by a viewer and he made an excellent point that when you're paying $500 or $1,000 for a guided trip, hook sets are indeed not free. All right, the next one might get a little bit sticky, and that's calling bull trout bullies. I don't have much of an opinion on this one, but bullies does sound kind of dumb, but I am very much on the record stating that you cannot call cutthroats cutties. Not allowed. So where do you draw the line? Brookies is okay for sure. Sunnies for sunfish, definitely. Largies for largemouth, I don't know. Smallies is pretty well established, but how far do we take it? Tarpies, dories, jackies? Really the only one that's firmly established is that you can't say cutties. And you probably shouldn't say bullies because some kid's gonna get triggered. All right, the next thing we'll cover is sort of a group of words used to describe a big fish that you catch. I'm talking about a fatty, a beast, a toad, donkey, a pig, a hog, slob, slab, mogan, a monster, whopper, lunker. There are a lot of different ways to describe a big fish, and they're all kind of stupid. And I'm guilty of it too, don't worry. One viewer claimed that this is disrespectful to the fish. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it's definitely a bit contrived. All right, the next one's a little bit nitpicky, and I've talked about it before, but I think it needs to be talked about a lot more often because I see it so much. This is not how you spell flies. This is wrong. It's not even debatable. I know a lot of you have this in your Instagram handle or your brand name. Let me say this very clearly. Your brand name is spelled wrong. And don't say you did it on purpose because you didn't. This is how you spell the word flies. If there is one word that you need to know how to spell correctly in fly fishing, this might be it. It's like you're a golfer and you spell golf like my mom pronounces it. Golf. Listen, I know I shouldn't make fun of people for bad spelling, but this is like spelling your name wrong. It's flies. Gah, just get it right. All right, well, I did it again. I just made myself mad at the end of the video, so I'm gonna shut it down. Thank you as always for watching another one of my huge fly fisherman videos. I'll be back as soon as I can with another video about fly fishing for you. Until then, watch what you say and stay huge. You know, it actually felt pretty good to get some of that off my chest. So thank you.